Okay, hiya, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at droughts. And droughts are just a case of when there is less water than normal. It can affect anywhere and everywhere. So people often get confused with the difference between arid environments, and an arid environment is somewhere like a desert. But arid environments don't often suffer from drought because their normal precipitation is very little. So in their dry, high pressure, dry air and warm climate, that is what it is. So they're very unlikely to get a drought. But as you'll look later in our case studies with Ethiopia and California, they have less rainfall than normal, and that is a drought. Even the UK suffered from droughts. So it affects most countries, however, with a rainy season, as they rely on this more. And this is caused by the change in global circulation, meaning precipitation is weak or not at all. So often if precipitation happens in winter, then the rain is soaked into the soil. However, in summer, the land is baked and cracked and won't absorb the water, or it will evaporate off very quickly. So the causes of drought, it can be put into two categories. So one is meteorological droughts, which is just when you receive less precipitation than normal from changes in the climate air patterns. So this could be from global atmospheric circulation, or the ocean currents changing. And this has happened particularly recently a lot because of the warming climate and ocean. And this could also come from the jet stream, because sometimes the jet stream is inconstant, and this can prevent the rain reaching a particular country. Then you also have hydrological causes, which is low precipitation from a water system, for example, a river basin. This has the same impacts of droughts, but underground water is lost quite quickly. Okay, so human activity can cause droughts too. So one is dams. If you can imagine, there's a lot of build-up of water behind dams. If they'll break, you have floods, or there's lots of bits built up. Then you also have deforestation, which can also contribute to drought and on different scales. Removing trees results in less carbon dioxide being absorbed from the atmosphere, which will increase the greenhouse effect. But also, forests like the Amazon rainforest actually have their own ecosystem. Well, they have their own weather system, and this is because of a process called transpiration, and the plants themselves hold a lot of the water. You also have agriculture. It's not just they need the water, but also wetlands can be drained to make the land arable, which is a cause of drought. And now let's look at some impacts of drought. So the social impacts are its ill health among the population. Another impact is it can cause depression and anxiety. Safety risks, as fires and dust storms are more likely. There's lots of migration because people move away from the affected areas, but they do so without, adequate supplies. And then economic impact. Industries such as farming and forestry are unable to support jobs, leading to mass unemployment. Also, water companies have to spend large amounts of money on new supplies and pipe systems. Food prices increase as farm production decreases, putting poorest at risk of malnutrition. And related industries, so you drop in income leading to job losses. Then environmental, wild animals suffer from a loss of water. There's a lot of habitats that are damaged or lost. And then the soil becomes dry and cracked but no longer supports plants. Endangered species could become extinct, and wildlife may migrate away from that area. So, now let's look at our first case study, which is the California case study. So, California has had an on and off drought since 2012, and it's still going on. And in 2004, it was declared a state of emergency. And one cause I think this could be is there's many states that rely on the Colorado River, and people might be extracting more than they should. So some effects of it is there's more underground water extracted, which alters the ground level and there's also seawater intrusion, which makes it inaccessible for drinking, and if the seawater gets into the waterworks, it's too salty. They think it could be caused by warm, windy weather and wildfires. And also power supply has been reduced, so they've had to build water canals. And so here are some responses. So they've limited the amount of water you can take during winter months to build up reservoirs. They're also limiting how much water anyone can use. They're reducing the water supplies. They're helping salinity control and stopping so much seawater getting into the works. They're also doing education programs to educate people to use less water, and they're monitoring rivers to check and help endangered species, which all is pretty good. So next case study is Ethiopia, which is a country in Eastern Africa, and it has suffered from lots of droughts since 1983. And Ethiopia is a country that really relies on the rainy seasons per year. However, now they're becoming more shorter, more delayed and infrequent. So they think the Ethiopian drought is caused because of the warming Indian Ocean. The rising air loses more moisture as rainfall before it gets a chance to come over to Ethiopia. So the drier air moves over instead, which causes a drought. So here are some effects. So 85% of Ethiopia's population live in the countryside and are dependent on farming. And because it's drought, there's less farming, which means less food, which means the food prices increased, which means it's poor and people have very little because the poor people can't afford it. So they suffer malnutrition and even famine. Also, only 57% have access to a proper water source. So lots rely on spring, rivers or lakes, which are in decrease. And many people, like the elderly or if you are sick, can't make the journey to fetch water. So it impacts health, education and the countryside livelihood. And it's causing a lot of rural to urban migration, as they think they might have better off in the city. So the responses, they've used Live Aid, which is a charity to raise awareness and money for those affected in Ethiopia. And there's also NGOs, which are non-governmental organisations like UNICEF and Oxfam, which are helping to provide clean water and medical care and food to those suffering. And they also help educate them on farming techniques and other education to aid them in getting a better job if they do decide to move to the cities. And that's all you need to know. Thank you for watching and I hope this helped.